last year, how many times have you told yourself, this time it'll stick? You read the books, tried the diets, maybe even used fancy productivity apps, only to slip right back into old habits. That cycle of false starts and burnout can make us doubt real change is possible. But by the end of this video, you'll discover the three-step Peacock method, an approach that reveals your hidden potential instead of forcing it, and see exactly how to apply it to finally reinvent yourself for good. Part of the reason we get stuck is that we tend to chase external fixes without addressing deeper internal barriers. It's almost like constantly rearranging the furniture in a cluttered room instead of actually throwing out the junk. We see countless quick-fix solutions, diets, workout apps, morning routines, and they all promise to solve our problems from the outside in. But if we're carrying around certain mental scripts or self-doubts, no amount of surface-level adjustments will truly stick. In psychology, this is often linked to our identity. When we see ourselves as someone who just can't keep it together, we're more likely to sabotage new habits or revert to our comfort zone. It's not laziness, it's a subconscious tug of war. Now here's where the peacock metaphor comes in. A peacock isn't continuously building new feathers on demand. It already has them, tucked away out of sight. Most of us have hidden strengths or traits we barely use because we're too busy forcing external changes rather than recognizing what's already within. These folded feathers could be anything from creativity to empathy to leadership potential, qualities we've convinced ourselves we don't actually have. But what if we approach self-transformation the way a peacock unfolds its vibrant colors? Slow, steady, and natural, instead of rushed and artificial. Of course, that raises a crucial question. How do we actually unfold these dormant strengths without faking it or burning ourselves out yet again? That's exactly what we're about to explore. Before we dive deeper, take a quick moment to do a tiny self-check. Think of one trait or passion you've kept hidden or underused. Got it in mind? Perfect. Hang on to that thought as we uncover how to let those feathers truly shine. Meet Gohan. He's devoured every self-help bestseller, tried waking up at 5 a.m. to meditate, and even signed up for an intense weekend workshop on unleashing your potential. Each time, he felt a burst of motivation only to watch it fizzle out in a matter of days. After repeating this pattern for months, Gohan was ready to give up, convinced that he was just one of those people who'd never truly change. One night, while scrolling through random articles on Eastern philosophy, Gohan stumbled on two ideas that stirred something in him. First was a reference to the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about Swadharma, our inherent nature, the unique path each of us is meant to walk. Second was a Zen quote reminding him that everything we seek might already be within us, merely hidden by our own misconceptions. Suddenly, the thought of transformation shifted from adding on new habits to revealing what's already there. And right alongside this realization, Gohan read a small piece about how peacocks in Indian symbolism often represent renewal and the idea of unfolding one's inner beauty, much like what he'd just read about in Zen and the Gita. With cautious optimism, Gohan decided to make one small change, journaling daily about his underused talents. At first, he felt a small spark of excitement as he noted qualities he'd ignored, like a knack for creativity. But doubt quickly crept in. Was he just kidding himself again? He'd seen fleeting success before. Would this time be any different, or just another motivational spike followed by a crash? Imagine for a moment you've uncovered a hidden talent or passion. Would you know how to nurture it, or would you let doubt bury it again? Keep that image in mind, because next, we're breaking down how Gohan and you can avoid another false start. Now that we've seen how chasing external fixes keeps us stuck, let's finally reveal the Peacock method, a three-step framework designed to unfold what's already inside you, rather than adding more pressure or pretending to be someone else. Here's how it breaks down. Step 1. Identify your folded feathers. Think of every time you've said, "I'm just not that creative," or "I'm not a leader." Chances are you've got hidden qualities, your folded feathers, that you've rarely acknowledged. In many Eastern teachings, including Zen, There's this idea that most of what we think we lack might actually be buried under layers of self-doubt or social conditioning. You don't need to build new feathers. You need to find the ones already there. Take out a piece of paper or open your notes app and list one or two traits or passions you suspect have been underused. It could be a skill you enjoyed in childhood, a subject you secretly daydream about, or a side of your personality that rarely comes out. Write it down. Don't overthink it. Pin Zen. There's a concept often summarized as recognizing the root within. It means rather than chasing external solutions, look inward at what's been overlooked. By identifying your hidden feathers, maybe empathy, humor, artistic flair, you're taking the first step toward authentic reinvention. Step 2. Gently nurture those feathers. The biggest mistake people make after identifying a hidden strength is trying to transform overnight, burning themselves out in the process. Real change, especially one that feels authentic, requires a slow, steady approach. Much like how a peacock's feathers grow over time, not in one sudden burst. When you force a new persona, it creates resistance and doubt. You might feel like an imposter if you suddenly announce, "I'm a writer now," without building any foundation. Instead, look for small, daily or weekly actions that let you dip your toes in gradually. Spend 10 minutes a day or a couple of short sessions a week practicing this newly identified strength or passion. If you wrote down creative thinking, maybe start by brainstorming stories, drawing, or exploring new ways to solve everyday problems. Keep it fun and consistent, rather than grueling and all-consuming. Gohan, who'd once dismissed himself as unimaginative, began sketching silly cartoons for 10 minutes every evening. This manageable habit didn't feel like a chore, and over time, he noticed genuine improvement that fueled his confidence. Step 3. Unfurl and display. It's not enough to nurture your feathers in private. A peacock's true magic is in its bold display, revealing those radiant colors for the world to see. Often, we're scared to share our progress, fearing judgment or suspecting people won't accept the new us. But unfurling your feathers is what cements your growth, allowing you to step fully into that emerging identity. Volunteer to lead a small project at work or show a friend the art you've been quietly creating. Each time you do, you reinforce your newfound skill and gradually rewrite your internal story. Take a moment to recap these 3 steps. Identify, nurture, display. Which one do you find the most challenging and why? After weeks of gently nurturing the traits he'd once dismissed, Gohan found himself on the verge of a real transformation. He'd quietly built up the habit of sketching every evening and brainstorming creative solutions for daily problems, just 10 or 15 minutes at a time. It felt more like play than effort, and as he flipped back through his journals, Gohan noticed tangible progress. His ideas were bolder, and the act of creating no longer felt forced. The turning point came when his workplace announced a team-building presentation day. In the past, Gohan would have shrunk away from the spotlight, but this time, he decided to unfurl his newly discovered creativity by volunteering to design a short, interactive brainstorming exercise for his colleagues. It was a small task, but the mere act of putting his work on display felt like stepping out onto a stage, feathers spread wide. On presentation day, the energy in the room shifted. People laughed at his fun sketches, participated wholeheartedly in his brainstorming activity, and even asked how he came up with such original ideas. Gohan realized almost in real time that this wasn't an act or a random spark of luck. It was the result of nurturing a genuine part of himself he'd kept hidden for far too long. For once, he didn't feel like an imposter or a fraud. It felt natural, like a piece of him was finally stepping forward. Afterwards, a surprising bit of feedback sealed the deal. His boss casually mentioned how she never knew he was so inventive. She even suggested collaborating on future creative projects. In that moment, Gohan could see the peacock method in full bloom. He had identified a folded feather, nurtured it gradually, and finally displayed it for the world, or at least his coworkers, to see. Unlike every other forced self-improvement kick, this transformation felt real because it was rooted in what was already inside him. Yet Gohan also understood that this wasn't the end of the journey. It was a milestone. There would be new feathers to discover, new ways to refine the ones he'd just revealed. And that's a key takeaway. Reinvention is an ongoing process, not a one-time event. Imagine getting this kind of unexpected but encouraging feedback. How do you think it would change the way you see yourself? So remember that frustration we started with, how easy it is to slip back into old habits no matter how hard you try. Well, that cycle ends here. Now here's your next step. Comment below with one hidden feather you're finally ready to reveal. And once you're done, watch my next video for another simple yet powerful strategy to keep your growth momentum going. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.